Markets Now is brought to you by the 5-year anniversary of Brevant Seeds. Here's to 5 years of not just winning, but collecting one game-changing W after another. See all of our wins at brevant.com/wins.
And welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rourke with John Scheve of Scheve Grain, and we're seeing, higher prices in the grains this morning, as well as hogs, cattle futures setting back. And John, let's start off talking about the grain trade. Obviously, the market up here a little this morning. Is that technical, or is the market pinning its hopes on maybe some sort of movement on China?
I think there's a little bit of China buzz this morning. I think that's a fantastic idea there. I think that that's really probably beneficial for beans. Corn will probably follow along, hoping that it's taken along for the ride. In general, the market's been up the last couple of days off of negative news after that report. The trade just does not believe that there's a 186, 187, 188, whatever the USDA printed off. The trade still continually believes that the yield is getting smaller. I think the trade's with a number sub 183 at the moment. That's what they're really trading. Because if we were up around 186, 187, the carryout would be so significant, we'd be dropping back sub $4 futures. So uh, is that the fungus and the rust and the tar spot, is it a serious problem? And it certainly looks like it could be based upon the producers I've talked to across the country. Most of them did apply a fungicide to everything, but those that didn't are going to see definitely some pullback. But some early results that I've seen in the field have been that while farmers might have been hoping for a record for this crop, they've been very happy that it's still above average in most areas. Yeah, there's a few fields that have been under, but it seems like there's really no rhyme or reason because they can go down the road a half mile and the field right next to it is 20 bushels above average, another half mile down the road and it's 10, 15 bushels below average. So is it just an average crop? Well, that might be good because if the whole crop is an average crop, that might be an above average yield because there's usually somewhere a problem in the country. And maybe this year it isn't in the form of drought, it's in the form of disease.
Yeah, for sure. And we're hearing a lot of combine reports that also are under last year in terms of some of these corn yields. And as you said, we got a positive response out of the report. The market really didn't believe that yield was low enough. Did it believe the acreage number that we had, this record, 98.7 million acres of corn planted?
I think that that is something that it continually tries to assess. I don't think that they have a lot of problem with that number. I think that's probably what keeps it from going a little bit higher, but not a lot. I think that that number makes a lot of sense because there was never a point at which soybeans made money planting them. You can go all the way back to May of last year. I think before you find a time where November beans were above break-even values. So it never paid to put beans in the field. People were doing it from a rotational standpoint or just hoping that beans would rally on something. Corn in February had a chance to be at or around break even values. Um, so I think that corn always made a lot of sense. A lot of the other minor crops that they did not. And when you look at the total number that USDA printed here, 98 million and 82 million on the beans, that's 180 million. And if we look at over time, 180 is dead center of what we normally plant on corn and beans. It's usually planted between 178 and 182, kind of moves a little bit back and forth, but overall, this is exactly what we should be looking for is a 182 total between those two. So I don't really have too much of a problem with the number. I can see that it's a lot, but never made sense not to plant corn compared to anything else.
Well, for sure. And in the Western Corn Belt, with as good as the weather was and that sort of thing, we probably put in a few more acres there than even farmers expected. Where did those acres come from, though, John? Do you think you said maybe cotton might have been part of the play there or not?
Cotton certainly wasn't profitable. I think we lost a few there, but all those minor crops were losing 100,000 here, 200,000 there. I talked to several producers in the Dakotas, and they were trying to put in as many edible beans as they could instead of like going to a soybean. Wheat did not make a lot of sense. Spring wheat was having trouble. I don't. People did not want to put that in, so there might have been a few acres. I think beans were ultimately the loser,
Yeah.
but every minor crop didn't make sense, and now you look forward to 2026, and it's even worse because now you don't even have corn at a break-even point, and with these higher nitrogen prices, something has to give. It's either corn's too low or fertilizer's too high, or maybe it's a combination of both. But right now, you're not going to plant beans because they don't make money. Corn doesn't make money. This is a scary time now moving into this next year.
Yeah, well, I want to talk to you a little bit about the 26 acreage mix here in a minute, but following up here on our corn discussion, USDA also projected record demand. But in your mind, is there any way, even if we lose bushels and are sub 183 on this corn yield, can we get below 2 billion bushels on ending stocks or not?
I think we can get below 2 billion, but the question is how much do we get below it? The feed number, when you have animals on feed up 1% year over year and you have a feed and residual up 7%, the math there doesn't work. But that's how the USDA will go back to trying to figure something out there. The other problem is if we don't get a trade deal and we don't export the sorghum or milo or whatever you call it back out of the country, there's another 100 million. And I know that those are very small numbers, but it's all little problems that add up. That where are we going to get this demand? The one thing I do think that is a positive from the USDA standpoint is I think that the exports are possible, but that also assumes that we probably don't get a bean deal with China done because there's only so much capacity in the country. There's only so many rail cars to ship grain to the West Coast or barges to the Gulf. At the current way of doing things, I think that we can export the corn in this amount, but I think that that's going to come at the expense of the beans. And so the bean export number is at the lowest number we've seen, well, almost at the lowest we've seen in the last 15 years. It matches almost exactly what we saw in the trade war one. So if anything, I think that that's a positive that beans, any trade deal with them could be very positive on beans, but that might long term not help corn from a cash standpoint. Initially, I think obviously we would be bullish because the belief is we'll export it, but we only have so much capacity in the country, and the question would be, can we meet both bean and corn demand if there was some kind of deal made?
Yeah, so you say that the 300 million bushel ending stocks figure, the exports are already accounting for lost China demand
On the
on
beans.
soybeans, on
Yeah,
soybeans.
yeah, I
There you
think
go.
that number's already plugged into there. If it isn't, I mean, then bean prices are going to be disastrously lower. But, why would we assume that it would be a lot less than what it was the last go around? I realize Brazil raised a lot more this year and they're potentially going to raise a lot more next year, but we aren't really accounting to take any more from them. And they also have only so much capacity to load product out. So even if you raise it, can you get all of it out in a timely manner, or is that going to have a logistical nightmare in Brazil as well? It also comes back to capacity. You can say you've got the product, but if you can't load it and move it, it doesn't matter.
And we've already seen basis telling us that we're not going to have enough room or that producers should store beans, right?
Depending where you are, yes, I would say that the Dakotas, Minnesota, maybe even to a point, Nebraska, Western Iowa. Well, certainly when you're seeing those minus 115 type of basis values or 120, 130, whatever you're seeing in the Dakotas there that are just horrible, that's telling you you got to put it in the bin because the market doesn't want it, doesn't have a home for it, doesn't know what to do with it. So it's hoping you can find something to solve the problem. Next thing you'll see is that'll run into a corn issue then, but the corn's going to be exported out. So the question then becomes, will the beans be exported? Will they have to be crushed in this country?
Right. Do you think yields coming down on soybeans? If so, how much?
Uh, Guessing yield on beans will make any person look very foolish.
Yeah, I gotcha. That's a
I
tough
don't
one.
trust anyone's guess on their yield until about October 5th. Then I feel that their guess is probably a lot closer. Uh, the dry weather in August was certainly some of the worst in the East. And so I think that anytime you have late August dryness, it's going to hurt yield. And the question will be how much. And so
Yeah.
that's another reason that I would be slightly bullish beans. I think that the Eastern market will have more opportunities just because it was drier there, so they should have a lower yield. That being said, any of the Group 2 beans coming off that were planted early, the yields have been above average on those, but that's because they escaped the moisture issues of late August.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about, I said 2026 acreage here with what we're seeing for the setup. Do you see as many acres of corn being planted, especially when fertilizer prices are at these high levels?
The question becomes, what do we put into the fields if we don't put corn or if we don't put beans? Neither one of those is really showing a profitable trade right now. And so then the question becomes, you're not going to put wheat, you're not going to put cotton. All the small crops that we grow can't handle a lot of acres, so that isn't an option. The question becomes, are we above variable prices? And the reason I say variable prices is I think it's going to come back to the value of land and mostly in the cost of rents. And I think that there's going to be some landlords who are going to have some very unpleasant conversations with their renter. And they're not going to like to hear that the prices are coming down. That is going to ripple through the economy because there's a lot of people who are retired and are counting on a set amount of money coming in each year. This gets kind of scary as we go into the spring because you have a lot of farmers who say, if I give up, if I don't pay what they're asking, I'm not going to have it. And it means I'm getting smaller. My concern becomes, if you're paying and losing and the prices don't go up, you might not be in business for 2027. And that also is a concern. And I think that the farmer gets caught in a catch 22. I think that the landlords are going to have a very unpleasant time as well. This is not going to be a fun next 6 months to a year as we have to push through this. But we've seen these kinds of situations occur 2016 to 2019. We've seen it 2002 to 2005, and we've seen it in the 80s and part of the 90s. It does cycle in, it does cycle out. The key is to just figure the best possible scenario to lose the least amount of money to get through to the next good cycle.
Yeah, and now Secretary Rollins is saying USDA or the government might provide some sort of government bridge payment here for this fall. How will that influence some of these decisions, do you think?
It's a good Band-Aid. I think what you will see is it might keep prices from going down because if farmers at least have some money, then they aren't forced to sell. So that could open up some opportunities in the market, maybe at a time where you don't expect it to normally happen.
All right. All right. Thanks so much. John Scheve joining us with Scheve Grain. That is Markets Now.
You were right.
You were right.
You were right.
Well, you were right. When you choose your seed brand, there's winning, and then there's...
You were right. Should have gone with Brevant seeds.
When you choose Brevant seeds, you don't just win. You get to be right. Don't just win. Win. Talk with your retailer or visit Brevant.com/win to get started.